The first time my son suggested I might be slipping, he said it gently, like a man placing a blanket over a corpse. We were sitting at my kitchen table on March 14th, 2024. I remember the date because it was the day after I paid off the last $18,600 on his truck loan, a Ford F-150 Platinum he absolutely needed for his real estate business. I had made the final wire transfer at 9:12 a.m., Bank of Louisiana, reference number 447921B. By noon, Daniel was questioning my memory. "Dad," he said, stirring his coffee with a small silver spoon my wife Clara had bought in Savannah in 1987. "You told me yesterday you'd already paid that contractor, but he says he hasn't received anything." "I told you I scheduled it," I corrected him. "The transfer goes out Friday. ACH takes 3 business days." He exchanged a look with Melissa, his wife. A quick one, sharp, like a paper cut. "That's not what you said," she murmured. "I have built houses from bare red clay lots. I have managed payrolls for 42 men. I have negotiated steel prices during the 2008 crash when everything was burning and banks were eating each other alive. My memory had never failed me on a 3-day transfer window. Still, something in Daniel's expression unsettled me. Not concern, assessment. I live alone in the house Clara and I bought in 1998 for $312,000. For bedrooms, brick exterior, magnolia tree in the front yard that drops sticky petals every June. After Clara died in 2021, pancreatic cancer, 7 months from diagnosis to burial. The house became too large, too quiet. The refrigerator hum sounds louder when there's no one arguing about the thermostat. Daniel insisted I shouldn't handle everything alone. At first it was small things. "Let me help with your online banking, Dad. Fraud is everywhere. Maybe we should add me to your account, just in case." "In case of what?" I asked. "You know, if something happens." Something had already happened. Clara had died. That was the something. By April, they had me seeing Dr. Feldman, a neurologist with a waiting room that smelled of antiseptic and old magazines. I don't remember asking for a neurologist. I remember Daniel driving me there on April 22nd at 8:30 a.m., saying, "Just routine testing. Baseline stuff." Baseline for what? Dr. Feldman asked me to remember 3 words. Apple train blue. He asked me to draw a clock. He asked who the current president was. I answered everything correctly. I even corrected his arithmetic when he misstated my birth year. 72, not 73. I am not ready to donate a year of my life for free. Afterward, in the hallway, I heard Melissa whisper, "He's good at performing." That doesn't mean he's fine. Performing. As if I were a trained dog. 2 weeks later, Daniel brought paperwork. Power of attorney forms. Temporary, he said, just so I can manage things while we figure out what's going on. "What's going on?" I asked. The confusion. The mispayments. There were no mispayments. But he showed me a printed spreadsheet. Red marks next to utilities. A late property tax notice. I felt heat crawl up my neck. I had always paid taxes in January, early, with satisfaction. "Maybe you forgot," Melissa said softly. "It's okay if you did. It's a peculiar thing. Being told you forgot something you clearly remember doing. It creates a crack inside your skull. You begin to doubt not the event, but yourself." I signed the limited power of attorney on May 3rd, 2024. Not because I believed I was incompetent, because I was tired of defending reality. By June, Daniel had access to everything. My primary checking account, $186,440. Savings, $402,700. Investment portfolio at Raymond & Brooks, approximately $1.1 million. Mostly municipal bonds and conservative index funds. The house, already transferred to Daniel in 2022 to avoid probate complications. Estimated value, $1.4 million in the current market. Total assets under his shadow, over $3 million. On June 17th, he told me he'd moved $95,000 for better yield. "Where?" I asked. "Short-term development opportunity, 8% return." 8%. In this market, on short-term real estate. I stared at him over my bowl of oatmeal. The same plain oatmeal I now eat most mornings because Melissa insists it's brain healthy. No butter. No salt. Just water and a few blueberries. Show me the contract, I said. It's all handled electronically. Of course it was. That night I sat in my study, the one with Clara's old floral curtains and my leather chair cracked to the arms, and tried to log into my brokerage account. Password incorrect. I tried again. Locked. Daniel had simplified my login credentials. Simplified. Another word for removed. The next appointment with Dr. Feldman was July 2nd. This time Daniel answered half the questions for me. He's been repeating stories. He left the stove on. He gets agitated. I looked at the doctor. I built a subdivision of 32 homes in 2009 while juggling 2 lawsuits and a collapsed supplier. If I were agitated, you would know. Dr. Feldman gave a polite smile. Neutral, professional, detached. Let's schedule more comprehensive cognitive testing, he said. Melissa squeezed my hand like I was already fading. On July 15th, Daniel transferred another $210,000. This one labeled Bridge Capital Holdings. I didn't authorize it. When I confronted him, he sighed. Dad, we talked about this. You don't remember. That sentence stayed with me. You don't remember. It is a terrifying thing to have your competence narrated away from you. By August, neighbors had begun speaking slower around me. Melissa had told them I was declining, as if I were a coupon nearing expiration. On August 28th, at 3:40 p.m., I received a call from the bank's fraud department, confirming a wire transfer of $75,000. I said I hadn't initiated it. They said it came from my authorized representative, Daniel. When I confronted him that evening, he didn't deny it. Dad, I'm trying to protect our future. You wouldn't understand the complexity anymore. Our future, not mine. That night, for the first time, I opened Clara's old filing cabinet and pulled out my original medical records from 2023. Annual physical, perfect cognitive screening, blood pressure stable, cholesterol decent, no dementia, no impairment, nothing but grief. And grief is not a disease you can weaponize, unless someone wants to. On September 5th, Daniel informed me he had scheduled a capacity evaluation with another specialist. Just to be safe, he said. I looked at my son, my only child, the boy whose braces I paid for in cash, whose college tuition cost me $148,000 over 4 years, whose failed restaurant venture I bailed out with $320,000 in 2016. I studied his face carefully. There was no fear there, no sadness, only calculation. And for the first time, a thought formed in my mind, cold and steady. If I am losing my mind, why do the numbers still make perfect sense? If you believe older voices still matter, support this channel with a like and a subscription. The first thing dementia does not take from you is instinct. By October, I had stopped arguing. That surprised Daniel. I no longer corrected him when he said I had forgotten something. I no longer protested when Melissa moved documents out of my study and into what she called a safer filing system. I nodded. I smiled. I ate the oatmeal, and I watched. On October 3rd, 2024, at 7:15 a.m., I drove myself to the Raymond and Brooks office without telling anyone. I had found the spare car, key Melissa didn't know about, the one Clara used to keep in a porcelain sugar bowl in the pantry. Some habits outlive suspicion. The office lobby smelled like lemon polish and ambition. A young man named Carter, who couldn't have been older than 32, greeted me with a polite tone reserved for retirees who ask about bond yields. I'd like a full transaction printout for the last 6 months, I said. He hesitated. Your son has been handling most of the account activity, Mr. Whitaker. I'm still alive, I replied. Print it. He did. 47 pages. I sat in a small conference room with frosted glass walls and read every line. June 17th, $95,000 transfer to Bridge Capital Holdings, LLC. July 15th, $210,000 transfer same entity. August 28th, $75,000 wire confirmed. September 19th, $48,500 labeled consulting retainer. October 1st, $22,300 administrative fees. Total moved in 106 days, $450,800, nearly $500,000. Can you pull registration documents for Bridge Capital? I asked. Carter typed, paused. It's a domestic LLC, registered May 28th, 2024. Registered 2 weeks after I signed limited power of attorney. Who's the managing member? He turned to the monitor slightly. Daniel Whitaker. The room became very quiet. I felt no dizziness, no confusion, only clarity, sharp and metallic. My son had created an LLC and was transferring my money into it under the pretense of investment management. 8% return. The only guaranteed return in that arrangement was control. I drove home slowly. My hands were steady on the wheel. Traffic on Highway 190 was mild. A delivery truck cut me off near Oak Harbor, and I calculated its speed without effort. If I were cognitively impaired, I would not have noticed the truck's worn rear tire. When I pulled into my driveway, Daniel's SUV was already there. He was in my kitchen, reviewing mail. "You went out?" he asked casually. "Coffee," I said. "With whom?" "Memory," I answered. He didn't smile. That evening, I logged into my checking account using the simplified credentials he'd given me. I knew enough about systems to test patterns. His password reset email was still connected to my old recovery account, an oversight born of arrogance. Within 20 minutes, I had full access again. There were additional withdrawals I hadn't seen at Raymond and Brooks. Mortgage payment, $12,400. Not mine. Private school tuition, $18,750. Not mine. Country club membership, $9,600 annually. Not mine. All categorized as family asset reallocation. Over $83,000 in personal lifestyle expenses had been routed through my accounts in 3 months. I printed everything. The printer in my study makes a faint grinding sound before each page. Clara used to complain about it. That night, the sound was almost comforting. October 9th, I attended the capacity evaluation. Dr. Elaine Mercer conducted it, this time. Neuropsychologist, polished, efficient. 3 hours of structured cognitive testing. Pattern recognition, recall intervals, executive function sequencing, financial literacy simulations. Financial literacy. She handed me a mock brokerage statement with embedded discrepancies and asked me to identify irregularities. I found all 7 within 4 minutes. She raised an eyebrow. After the session, while Daniel stepped out to take a call, Dr. Mercer closed her file. "Mr. Whitaker," she said carefully, "have you personally experienced memory loss?" "No," I replied, "but I have experienced narrative manipulation." Her pen stopped. I stepped closer. "You also paid your mortgage, your son's tuition, and your country club dues through my accounts. $83,000 in 3 months. Would you like me to provide transaction IDs? His voice dropped. "You're making this ugly. You started ugly." Melissa stepped in. "We were protecting your legacy." My legacy was not meant to fund your granite countertops. For a moment, just a moment, I saw something honest in Daniel's expression. Not remorse, fear. On November 12th, it was colder than expected. Fluorescent lighting has a way of bleaching faces. Daniel sat beside his attorney, a younger man with perfect hair and expensive cufflinks. Melissa, behind them, hands folded like a grieving widow. I sat beside Harold Gaines, the judge, a woman in her late 50s with sharp eyes and no patience for theatrics, reviewed the petition. "Mr. Whitaker," she said, looking at Daniel, "you claim progressive cognitive impairment." "Yes, Your Honor." "Based on what medical evidence?" He cited Dr. Feldman's initial screening. Harold stood. "Your Honor, we have an independent comprehensive evaluation from Dr. Elaine Mercer, board-certified neuropsychologist, conducted October 9th. He handed up the affidavit. The judge read silently for nearly 2 minutes. Then she looked at me. "Mr. Whitaker, can you explain the purpose of a power of attorney?" "It allows a designated agent to act on one's behalf in financial or legal matters, either limited or durable, depending on structure. It does not equate to incapacity." The courtroom grew very still. She nodded slightly. "And are you aware of financial transfers made under your son's authority?" "Yes, Your Honor. $510,800 into an LLC he controls." Daniel's attorney objected. "Relevance." "Overruled," the judge said sharply. "This goes directly to motive." Harold submitted the LLC registration. Filed May 28, 2024. Managing member, Daniel Whitaker. The judge's pen paused. "Mr. Whitaker," she said to my son, Did you disclose this entity in your petition? No, Your Honor. Why not? It was an investment vehicle for my father's benefit. Is there documentation supporting agreed terms? Silence. The judge leaned back. Based on the independent medical evaluation and the financial irregularities presented, this court finds insufficient evidence of incapacity. Daniel's shoulders stiffened. The guardianship petition is denied. The sound of the gavel was not loud, but it echoed. As we stood, the judge added one more sentence. I strongly suggest financial mediation before this escalates further. Escalates. Outside the courtroom, Daniel grabbed my arm. You're destroying this family. I removed his hand slowly. No, I said quietly. I'm protecting what's left of it. And for the first time since this began, I saw the truth plainly. They had underestimated the one thing they thought I was losing. My mind. The morning after the hearing, my house was unusually quiet. No coffee brewing in the kitchen. No Melissa rearranging cabinets that had not required rearranging for 26 years. No Daniel pacing with his Bluetooth headset, talking about square footage and closing costs, as if square footage were a personality trait. They had not stayed the night. Good. I made my own breakfast, 2 eggs, butter toast, black coffee. Not the oatmeal. I was done performing frailty. At 8:30 a.m., Harold Gaines called. They'll regroup, he said. Guardianship was the clean way. Now they'll try something less clean, such as pressure, emotional leverage, a possibly asset liquidation before we can freeze anything. We can freeze if we file for breach of fiduciary duty under the power of attorney. Yes, there it was, the phrase I had been waiting for, breach of fiduciary duty. On November 15th, we filed suit in civil court. Whitaker versus Whitaker. I never imagined seeing my name on opposite sides of a caption. The complaint detailed every transfer. $510,800 to Bridge Capital Holdings, LLC. $83,000 in personal expenditures. Failure to disclose, self-dealing. Petition for emergency accounting and asset freeze. Harold also requested an immediate injunction against further transfers. At 2:14 p.m., Daniel was served at his real estate office. At 4:02 p.m., he was standing in my living room again. You're suing me? He asked, voice low and tight. I'm auditing you, I corrected. You're going to drag this through court? Public record. You filed to have me declared incompetent. That was for your protection. And the $500,000? He exhaled sharply. It's invested. In what? Development land near Biloxi. Under whose name? He didn't answer. Melissa stepped forward, as she always did when optics mattered. We were going to surprise you, she said. The returns were meant to secure your care long term. With my own money, I said. She faltered. Daniel's temper slipped for the first time. You would have wasted it sitting in municipal bonds. I built my company on slow money, I replied. Not borrowed illusions. He ran a hand through his hair. You don't understand modern leverage. I understand unauthorized leverage. The next week moved quickly. The court granted a temporary restraining order on November 19th. All accounts linked to Bridge Capital Holdings were frozen pending forensic accounting. Daniel called that evening. You froze everything, he said. Yes, I have payroll obligations. Then you shouldn't have funded them with my retirement. Silence stretched. You're going to ruin me, he whispered. I looked around my study, Clara's curtains, the filing cabinet, the faint, grinding printer. You began that process yourself. On November 23rd, we received preliminary forensic findings. Bridge Capital Holdings had purchased 14.6 acres of undeveloped land outside Gulfport for $480,000. Title holder, Bridge Capital Holdings, LLC. Loan collateral? None. Remaining liquidity in the LLC account, $12,740, meaning nearly all of my money was tied into raw land speculation. No permits filed. No development approvals. No infrastructure agreements. Just dirt. Expensive dirt. Harold tapped the report. This isn't structured investment, he said. It's concentration risk bordering on reckless. It's ego, I answered. We filed an amended complaint, including unjust enrichment and conversion. On November 30th, Daniel attempted mediation. We met in a neutral office downtown. He looked older, tired. The confidence he wore like cologne had thinned. I can transfer the LLC interest to you, he said. With debt? Harold asked. There's no debt. There's also no liquidity, I added. Melissa leaned forward. Can we settle this privately? Withdraw the suit. For what consideration? Harold asked. Daniel swallowed. I'll step down as managing member. And the $83,000? I said. That was family support. It was unauthorized. His jaw tightened again. You're going to choose money over your son. I studied him carefully. I chose boundaries over exploitation. The mediation failed. On December 6th, the court ordered a full accounting and scheduled trial for February. That same afternoon, something unexpected happened. Raymond and Brooks notified us of a separate loan application submitted using my portfolio as reference backing documentation. Applicant, Daniel Whitaker. He had attempted to secure a private development loan citing anticipated capital infusion for my investment accounts. After the injunction, after being served, Harold stared at the email. That, he said quietly, is intent. We amended again, adding attempted fraudulent inducement. When Daniel came to confront me this time, there was no performance left. You're destroying your own grandson's future, he said. No, I replied. I'm teaching him something you never learned. And what's that? That other people's money is not a birthright. He laughed bitterly. You think you're going to win? I held up Dr. Mercer's report. You tried to declare me incompetent to justify control. I held up the forensic audit. You transferred $500,000 into an entity you own. I held up the loan application. You leveraged assets you no longer control. His eyes flickered. That same calculation I had seen months ago. But now it wasn't confidence. It was exposure. For the first time, Daniel was not narrating my decline. He was defending his own. The trial date was set, February 18th, 2025. And this time, it wouldn't be about whether my mind was failing. It would be about whether his integrity had. February 18th, 2025 arrived cold and unremarkable. The sky over the parish courthouse was the color of unpolished steel. I wore the same navy suit I had worn to Clara's funeral, not out of symbolism, but because it still fit and I dislike waste. Daniel stood across the hallway from me before the hearing began. He looked thinner. His real estate office had downsized in January. 2 agents left after the asset freeze became local gossip. Reputation is a fragile currency. When the bailiff called our case, Whitaker versus Whitaker, the room felt smaller than I remembered. This was no longer about guardianship. This was about breach of fiduciary duty, self-dealing under power of attorney, conversion of funds, and attempted fraudulent inducement. Legal language is colder than betrayal, but it lasts longer. Harold presented first. He walked the court through the timeline with the patience of a surgeon. May 3rd. Limited power of attorney executed. May 28th. Bridge Capital Holdings, LLC registered. June through October. $510,800 transferred into said LLC. Additional $83,000 in personal expenses paid for my accounts. November. Guardianship petition filed. December. Attempted loan application citing restricted assets. Each exhibit appeared on the courtroom monitor. Transaction IDs. Wire confirmations. Secretary of State filings. Numbers do not tremble. They do not stutter. Daniel's attorney argued investment discretion. Mr. Whitaker was acting in good faith to grow his father's wealth. The judge leaned forward. Did he disclose ownership interest in the receiving entity? No, Your Honor. Did he obtain written authorization for self-dealing transactions? No. Did he attempt to secure financing referencing frozen assets? A pause. Yes. The judge removed her glasses slowly. In what universe, she asked quietly. Does that constitute good faith? Daniel testified next. He spoke about ambition, about wanting to modernize my portfolio, about land appreciation trends along the Gulf Corridor. He did not speak about the kitchen renovation, or the country club, or the tuition. When it was my turn, Harold asked only a few questions. Mr. Whitaker, do you understand the structure of a limited liability company? Yes. Do you understand the concept of fiduciary duty under power of attorney? Yes. Have you been diagnosed with cognitive impairment? No. He then submitted Dr. Mercer's sworn testimony, along with my independent laboratory results. Clear cognitive function. No neurodegenerative markers. No metabolic explanation for impairment. The tests told the truth. The judge read silently for nearly 3 minutes. Silence in a courtroom has weight. It presses on your ribs. Finally, she spoke. Mr. Whitaker, she looked at Daniel. Power of attorney is not a license for opportunism. It is a position of trust. Her pen tapped once against the bench. You transferred substantial funds into an entity you controlled, failed to disclose material interest, and attempted to leverage restricted assets after litigation commenced. Daniel's shoulders sagged. I therefore find breach of fiduciary duty established. The words did not echo. They settled. The ruling was precise. Immediate dissolution of Bridge Capital Holdings. Court-appointed receiver to liquidate the 14.6-acre parcel. Full restitution of $510,800 plus market-adjusted interest. Repayment of $83,000 in personal expenditures. Legal fees assessed to Daniel. Permanent revocation of power of attorney. And one final clause. In light of the attempted guardianship based on unsupported claims of incapacity, the court finds the petition was not filed in good faith. That sentence mattered more than the money, because it restored something intangible. Competence. Outside the courthouse, reporters did not wait. There were no cameras. This was not a sensational case. Just a father and a son, and the arithmetic between them. Daniel approached me on the steps. It didn't have to go this far, he said. It didn't, I agreed. You could have trusted me. I studied his face carefully. The same boy I once carried on my shoulders at a Saints game in 1998. The same teenager whose first car I bought for $11,400 in cash. I did, I said quietly. That was the problem. He looked away first. The land sold in April. Market had softened. It fetched $472,000. After costs and penalties, nearly all principal was recovered. Daniel was forced to take a personal loan to cover the remaining restitution and fees. The country club membership disappeared. The renovation halted mid-countertop. Tuition was paid from his own account. We do not speak often now. On Sundays, I sit at my kitchen table with real butter on my toast and black coffee strong enough to argue with. The magnolia still drops its petals each June. The printer still grinds before every page. I restructured my estate in May. Irrevocable trust. Independent corporate trustee. Clear distribution terms tied to age and responsibility, not entitlement. Daniel is still a beneficiary, but not an operator. Sometimes I think about how close I came to surrendering my autonomy, simply because repetition can erode confidence. You don't remember. They said it so often I nearly believed it. But memory is not the only measure of a man. Judgment is, and mine was intact. The tests told the truth. And the truth, unlike manipulation, doesn't require rehearsal.